Good night forever. Good afternoon, everyone. It is said that these are the last words of Edgar Allan Poe. Although he is best known as the author of the world-famous works, The Great Raven, and The Black Cat, his life has always been shrouded in mystery and chaos. In this issue, we will share with you some shocking facts about Poe that you may never know. Why did he die a mysterious death at the young age of 40? What is the surprising truth behind his creative genius? If you watch until the end, you will surely discover a new aspect of Poe's character. Let's get closer to the truth about the most enigmatic writer in the history of American literature. Chapter 1. The Surprising Truth About My Childhood. Edgar Allan Poe was born in Boston on January 19, 1809. However, his life was tumultuous from the moment he was born. First, let me tell you about my own parents. His father, David Poe, once from a wealthy family, became an alcoholic and disappeared shortly after Edgar's birth, abandoning his family. His mother, Elizabeth, was a popular actress at the time, but died of tuberculosis at the age of only 24. Edgar lost his parents when he was less than 2 years old. Here is a surprising fact. Poe actually had an older brother, William, and a younger sister, Rosalie. All three were taken in by different families. This experience of separation from his family would have a great impact on the theme of loss in his later works. Edgar was taken in by Mr. and Mrs. John Allan, a wealthy merchant from Richmond, Virginia. On the surface, Edgar appears to have grown up in a privileged environment, but here is a startling fact. His adoptive father, John, a businessman who made his fortune in the tobacco trade, was extremely strict in his upbringing. For example, when the young Edgar was absorbed in writing poetry, he reprimanded him for wasting his time and even confiscated his poetry collection. Even more shocking is the testimony that he sometimes locked Edgar in the basement as a form of discipline. This experience is reflected in his later works, such as The Fall of the House of Usher and The Black Cat, in the motifs of claustrophobic descriptions, basements, and being buried alive. So the source of his creation, which has been called the master of the horror story, was in fact a traumatic childhood experience. His adoptive mother Frances, however, was different. She loved Edgar as if he were her own son and recognized his literary talent. In fact, it is not widely known that the first poem Poe wrote was about his love for his foster mother. It is said that this relationship with her adoptive mother influenced the formation of the ideal woman in her later works. Chapter 2. The Surprising Truth About His Genius Student Years. In 1826, Poe enrolled at the University of Virginia. It was here that he would demonstrate his remarkable talent. First, let me tell you a surprising fact. Poe was called a genius in classical languages at the time. He consistently ranked first in his classes in Latin and Greek examinations. Moreover, he also had a perfect command of French, and the French poet Baudelaire was later so impressed by Poe's work that he translated it into French. Here, however, his life took a major turn. His adoptive father, John Allan, did not provide Edgar with sufficient tuition money. At the time, the cost of living as a student was about $250 per year. But Allan sent only $110. This financial need led Poe to take up gambling. However, this was not just a gambling addiction. In fact, Poe used his mathematical talents to challenge wagers with calculations based on probability theory. For example, he used card counting techniques to rack up wins in the then popular card game Vingt-un. This experience is said to have served as the basis for his later elaborate logical development in mystery novels. Even more remarkable is his physical talent. At the time, Poe was also known as an excellent swimmer. In June 1827, he swam 6 miles, about 9.7 kilometers, in the James River, setting a record for the time. This feat was even reported in the local newspaper under the headline, "The Young Poet's Marvelous Swim." However, his gambling debts ballooned to $1,500, and his relationship with his foster father deteriorated to the point of irreconcilable differences. As a result, Poe was forced to drop out of college. This setback would deeply influence the theme of struggle against fate in his later works. Chapter 3. The Unknown Face of Poe the Soldier. In 1827, after leaving college, Poe enlisted in the army under the alias Edgar A. Perry. This was a sign of his determination to sever ties with his adoptive father. Here is a startling fact. In fact, Poe excelled very well in his military career. In particular, his skill as an artilleryman was outstanding, and he surprised his superiors with his precise calculation and calm judgment. Surprisingly, he also seemed to enjoy the disciplined life in the army. In his diary, he wrote, "This disciplined life is what I have been looking for." In fact, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant in a short period of 2 years. This was an exceptional speed of advancement for the time. During this period, Poe also continued to write poetry in secret. The poem, Tom Elaine, written during his military life, incorporates the discipline and order peculiar to the military as a rhyme scheme. This work would later be regarded as one of his early masterpieces. In 1829, Poe was recommended by his superiors and accepted to the prestigious West Point Military Academy. But here, too, an ironic fate awaited him. Shortly after entering the school, his adoptive mother, Frances, died of illness. Unable to repair his relationship with his adoptive father and unable to obtain financial support, Poe was forced to withdraw from the school after only 8 months. It is said that this frustrating experience influenced the theme of the cruelty of fate in his later work, Annabel Lee. It is also believed that the discipline and mathematical thinking of his military years became the basis for the logical development of his later mystery novels. Chapter 4. Surprising Truths as a Writer. In 1831, Poe began his writing career in earnest, but there are some surprising facts hidden here as well. First, surprisingly, Poe's main source of income was not from writing novels or poetry. In fact, his work as a literary critic was his biggest source of income. In his magazine, The Southern Literary Messenger, he harshly criticized the literary works of the day. His sharp analysis and relentless critical style earned him the nickname, Tomahawk Man. He is particularly famous for his criticism of the Transcendentalist movement that was popular at the time. He bitterly criticized the works of Transcendentalists such as Emerson and Thoreau, calling them the product of empty thinking. This stance was controversial in the literary world, but it also established him as a critic. Surprisingly, Poe also had a deep knowledge of science. His long poem, Eureka, published in 1848, was actually a scientific treatise with cosmological content. In this work, he developed a theory about the beginning of the universe similar to the modern Big Bang theory. Although it was put away at the time as a wild fantasy, it has attracted the attention of modern scientists. Poe is also known as a pioneer of cryptology. His short story, The Golden Beetle, published in 1839, describes a method of cryptanalysis that was revolutionary for its time, and it contained ideas that would become the basis of modern cryptanalysis. In fact, Poe did not achieve commercial success during his lifetime. Although The Great Raven made him a household name, he was paid only $9 for the manuscript. In today's terms, that is only about $300. However, his works were highly appreciated by later generations, especially in Europe. In particular, the French poet Baudelaire translated and introduced his works, which established his worldwide reputation. Chapter 5. Mystery of the Last Days and its implications for today. On October 3, 1849, Poe, en route from Philadelphia to Richmond, suddenly disappears. 4 days later, on October 7, he was found unconscious in front of Gunn's Tavern in Baltimore. Many mysteries remain about the circumstances of his discovery. First, he was wearing worn clothes that were not his own. Then, they say he was repeatedly shouting the mysterious word, Reynolds. On the morning of October 7, he was taken to the University of Washington Hospital, but never regained consciousness. Various theories have been proposed as to the cause of death. The most popular theory is that of rabies. The symptoms at the time of discovery, delirium, fever, and confusion, are said to match the symptoms of rabies. Alcoholism, brain tumors, and carbon monoxide poisoning have also been proposed. Even more interesting is the theory of political insinuation. In Baltimore at that time, there was a fraud called coping in election voting. This was a method of having the same person vote at more than one polling place, and they used vagrants and others to do so. The place where Poe was found was right near a polling place on Election Day. His influence continues today in many ways. For example, the American football team, the Baltimore Ravens, is named after Poe's Great Raven. Also, the Edgar Award, the world's premier mystery novel award, is named after him. Furthermore, he has had a major influence on contemporary pop culture. For example, the popular rock band The Alan Parsons Project has produced a number of songs inspired by Poe's work. So far, we have introduced you to the tumultuous life of Edgar Allan Poe. Behind his creative genius, there have always been hidden stories of loss and rebirth. Perhaps the reason why his works are still read nearly 200 years later is because they transcend the framework of mere weird and mysterious novels, depicting universal themes that lie deep within the human psyche. In this channel, we will bring you the untold truth about other writers as well. If you liked this video, please subscribe to our channel and give us a high rating as well. And with that, we will see you next time.